Welcome to Minutes with Mango, Life in Motion. I'm your host, Johnny Mango. This is the place where we inquire about lifestyle, culture, and careers. Weekly, we meet with new guests that make a contribution of their insightful stories about their careers and how those careers impact their lifestyle and culture. Hello, everybody. This is Johnny, and welcome to Minutes with Mango. If you ever thought about writing a book, or if you're in the middle of writing a book, if you've written a book, this is the one you want to listen to, because we have a wonderful guest today who helps people when they're writing their books. She helps guide them through the process, and she's been doing it for over 10 years. And what's really interesting to me is that, well, first of all, she's a former graduate professor of English at Norwich University. But she applies neuroscience-based teaching principles to help people with writing books. And she's got a second edition of her book out, and we're going to talk about that too. So without any further ado, please welcome Annalisa Summea. Hello, Annalisa.
Hi, Johnny. Thank you so much for having me here on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. So, Annalisa, let's get started with, tell us about yourself. You've got a varied background, and you've gotten into something here that I find very unique, that helping others write. So tell us about yourself.
Absolutely. So I really had a vocation from the day I was born. I was always wanting to be two things, a writer and a teacher. And I've been very blessed to always do those two things and have some exciting moments in both of those, in terms of things that I've been able to write and publish, but also in the ways that I've been able to teach and help writers. And neuroscience has been a really beautiful conduit for that, to really help people to find their best writer. And that's been really exciting and gratifying for me.
Well, that's wonderful. So I guess that I've heard of the writing gym. What is the writing gym?
Yeah, so the Writing Gym is the name of my program where we help writers to become authors. So it's really a soup to nuts program where we start with an idea. So some people might come in with a book, they might come in with an idea for a book, really showing them, how do you write a quality zero draft, we call it, that's up to the publishing industry standards. And then in the next phase, how do you then revise that to publishable and then pitch it so that agents and publishers are really interested in it? And then in the third phase, the thing that no authors like to talk about, but all of them need to do, which is marketing and sales, so that they can get that second book. So it's really the full machine that writers need to build out that author career. And we call it the Writing Gym because a commitment to a writing career is very similar to going to the gym. You know, you're going to have flabby abs if you don't show up to the gym and do your exercises. So that's how that works. And, sometimes you get up in the morning and you don't feel like running that day or doing your legs day or whatever it is, but you still need to show up. And this discipline that we help writers to build ultimately is transferable so that they can use it on the book that they work on with us, but they then have the skills for every other book from then on.
So you really you can start with somebody with an idea.
Exactly.
Is what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah.
So I have people always telling me I should write a book, and I'm like, oh God, no. Although I have to tell you, my kids gave me a gift a couple of years ago that I had to write a story a week about my life, and then it all got condensed into one big book for a year, 52 little chapters, and it was really hard to do that. And it took discipline too. They invited my wife to do it too, and she got down to the last couple of weeks and went, "Oh, I got to write this." And try to squeeze it out. So we all do things differently, I guess, when it comes to writing. So somebody can take an idea and work with you to develop that into some type of outline for a book, or if somebody has an outline or has even probably scratched something out and maybe did a draft, you could take it from there too, I would think.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
even more than outlines, my first book on writing is called Storytelling for Pantsers: How to Write and Revise Your Novel Without an Outline. That's the book that has the second edition coming out this year. And one of the specialties that I have created for myself is this niche in working with pantsers. Pantsers are people who can't work really well from an outline, and they struggle to create structure in their writing. And
Mm-hmm.
just like you and your wife have different ways of approaching a
Sure.
writing exercise, you each needed to do it in the way that worked for your brain. But there are a lot of teachers, mentors, programs, classes, whatever out there telling writers, oh, you have to have an outline or you have to do it this way. Well, there is no you have to do it this way. I'm really helping people to work with the unique brain that they were given and optimize that so that they can find what works for
Right.
them.
So let's talk a little bit about the neuroscience part of what you do, because that sounds to me that sounds really interesting. So can you talk a little bit about that and how it works, how it affects people, how you implement that, those types of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Storytelling for Pantsers, I talk about how most writing programs out or classes out there, imagine that you're trying to run a marathon, but you're trying to run it backwards. And you're working against the way that your body works naturally. It would be very difficult to run a mile backwards, never mind 26.
Right.
And yet, writers are working against their brains over and over again. They're doing it in feedback, they're doing it in the way that they're sharing their drafts, they're doing it in the way that they're sitting down to the page to write the page. And so, what I do is very bespoke to each author. I get to know authors really well before I even invite them to work with me,
Mm-hmm.
because we're really going to take a deep dive into all kinds of things. What time of day do you write the best? How do you
Right.
write? How do you organize? Those are all factors that we take into account as we put together a unique writing plan for that person in those initial stages when they have that first idea or the first couple chapters or even a first draft sketched out. And we're looking to flesh that out into a full zero draft. We're also working on helping them to find their best writer so they can be in creative flow, which is a neuroscientific state. It's a proven state of being in creative flow, so that they're not running that marathon back.
Right.
They're running it forward, and they're really optimizing their body system to help them to move forward.
Interesting. I have one of my sons is a writer, and he's written musicals, and he's written some books and published them, and I've always been amazed at anybody that can do that. And during COVID, when we were all locked down here in the States, he moved home during that time, and every afternoon he would leave, and I said, "Where are you going?" He says, "Well, I'm going to go to the Arboretum." And he always have a yellow pad with him, and I said, "Oh, well, that's outside. You can do that. That sounds pretty good." And get a little nature in. What I didn't know what he was doing when he went over there was on that yellow pad, he was drafting what became his book, which is a conversation with insects and different
Wow.
different little beings.
Yeah.
So I kind of have a sense of the writer, and a little bit just through my own children, but and that from the time he started that to the time he published it was probably 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
It was he had to take all those notes and then combine them and do all the work, and I was surprised he had the discipline. I'll be honest with you, I was surprised he had the discipline to bring it all to fruition. But so I kind of get that neuro part. So you apply that when you're working with a writer, huh? You're
Absolutely.
aware of it, and I would think that you integrate that in and teach that as the writers work and work on their stuff.
100%. And the bespoke part comes in where, let's take the example of you and your wife again, right? You would both have the objective of filling out this book, 52 stories. But the way that I would coach you to that end goal would be very different from the way that I would coach your wife. You have two different brains. You have two different
Yeah,
ways
yeah, yeah,
of experiencing the deadline, or,
yeah.
pacing out how you're going to write. And the two of you found that on your own and it worked out for you, but many writers end up stuck, and so they'll read the same books that everybody else is reading, or they'll take the same workshops that everybody else is reading, and they think that they're supposed to do it this way, they're supposed to
Right.
follow the XYZ model, and why can't my brain do this, and I guess I must not be a writer because I can't. That none of that is true.
Yeah,
There is a way for you to be a writer, but again, the reason that I love this analogy that I made up is like, if you're working with the system that you were given, you can move forward incredibly quickly. But when you're working against it, life just feels really hard, and that's a bad place for people to be in. It's hurtful. People feel bad about themselves. The inner critic comes in and tells them, oh, well, you must be a terrible writer. Nobody wants to read what
yeah,
you have to say anyway, right? All those terrible voices
yeah.
come in. So when we help people to work with their brain, so many of the other writing problems dissipate.
Interesting. So that's a really key to what you're doing, is that neuroscience piece to help them. And that really is, I would think, really gets into the individual, because we're all different. So that, as a starting point, you're really understanding the writer from any better word, a personal point of view, and how they tend to operate, so that then you can start to provide the guidance to them. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's very different from a class, right? Because a class, right, there's 20 of you, there's one professor,
Yeah,
everybody gets the same syllabus, everybody gets the same set of books, everybody gets the same assignments. Here, it's very curated and individualized to each
yeah,
person we work
yeah.
with.
I had somebody on about a year ago, called what's called a special genius project, and
Mm,
a little bit of neuroscience. I would think they have a theory that uh, like kids with Asperger's and different things that don't fit in with the norm, they're starting to realize in the teaching world that um, these kids process differently than the norm, and so they're being conditioned with the norm that isn't being understood by them, and it's causing them to have vocal problems, hearing problems, all kinds of nervous disorders and things like that, which I found just fascinating. And they're starting to develop tests for that now, to see
mm.
where the weakness is in somebody's learning ability, to help them, or their hearing ability. And a lot of it has to do with sight, which I had no idea. And an optician checking the eyes just for eyesight won't pick up on little details of somebody that may have trouble, not with just dyslexia, but with other sight problems. They're not processing the world like 99% of the population is, and so it's creating a learning disability that's being completely overlooked. Anyway, I'm getting way off track here with you, but I figured since you're into the neuro stuff, I'd share that with you. So why do so many books not scale? What's the challenge for getting a book to scale? Because everybody writes a lot of people write a book, and then they kind of just sit in Amazon and languish, for any better word. But what is the why do most business books fail to scale?
Business books that are intended to scale the business, do you mean? Or do you mean like a novel?
Yeah, either one. But what causes a book to scale and not scale? I mean, it, are there any
Well,
particular elements?
marketing. Um, and this is where my conversations with authors struggle a bit because marketing is a nasty word in the author world. They don't want to talk about their book as a business, but whether you're working with a traditional publisher or whether you're deciding to be your own publisher, your book is ultimately a product. And the reason that I choose marketing as the word is because, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, Johnny, there was this stool that they marketed as a magic poop stool. I don't know what they called it, but they used rainbows and unicorns. It was a stool to put your feet on while you were using the toilet. This thing made millions, if not billions of dollars. Why? Because the marketing was so good. It was a stool. Like there was nothing special about this stool, but it was the marketing that sold this special toilet stool. Think about that in terms of the way that authors treat their books. They want it to be loved as a piece of art, and that's admirable. I understand that. I'm a writer myself. But if we want to be successful, if we want strangers to read our books, then we need to see our book as a product. And we need to have the skills to carry that into the world. That doesn't mean like, oh, I just heard about Facebook, I think I'll try that. Like, yes, you probably should be on social media, but let's strategize that. Let's have a path forward for how this marketing plan is actually going to get your book out. And I think, that, but then, there's also a quality issue, like a stool, whatever. They're in people's storage units now. Nobody's thinking about that. But a book is something that somebody's going to invest a lot of time in, right? It's hours of a person's life reading this book. It needs to meet the quality expectations that are out there. And so a lot of books that come across my desk are great first drafts or great zero drafts, but they were not ready to be published. They didn't meet the reader's expectations. And then they get bad reviews, and then they get lowered down on Amazon or whatever site they're listed on, and then they get forgotten. And so having it meet the standards is really important. And I'll really briefly say here, Johnny, that, what I compare this to is a sports analogy. So, if I want to play in the NFL, I don't just play flag football in my backyard. I have to have the proper equipment. I have to have the coaches. I need to know the rules. If I show up in my high school sweatshirt and my sneakers to the NFL on tryout day, they're going to laugh me out of the place, right? I need to look like I'm an NFL player. I have to come in and be able to talk about plays the way that NFL players can talk about them. That seems obvious when we talk about sports stars. But because we all wrote in school, there's this idea that we can all write. And I do believe that we can all write. But we need to accept that training to the professional level if we want to be performing at a professional level. We can't show up to the NFL in our old sneakers.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. What you're describing is a discipline. That's really what you're saying. If you're going to write a book, you've got to be disciplined for all kinds of different reasons, not just to market it, but to create it, to do an outline, to turn it into something. And then once it's done, it can just sit there if you're not disciplined to push it out there, for any better word. In marketing, there's the push-pull. One can push it out, but it needs to be pulled also. So I understand that, and that's interesting. Let's talk about you did a second edition of your book. Why did you do that? And I want to know what a pantser is.
Well, it has been 10 years since the first edition came out. I am in conversation with publishing industry professionals every day. In the last year, the publishing industry has changed a lot, never mind the last 10 years. So we needed an updated version that really spoke to well, AI, for example, right? I mean, the publishing industry has changed so much. Technology is different. And I'm glad that you brought up pantsers. So pantsers are people who fly by the seat of their pants. So the way that I describe this on the back is, have you started a novel at least 68 times, the same novel, and only written the first chapter? Write chapter 1 and then chapter 5 and then chapter 2. Need to write to discover your story. So these are some of the attributes that describe a lot of pantsers. It's not linear. And what's really interesting about this, Johnny, is that, you mentioned the autism spectrum earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
And what I have found on the pantsing to outline spectrum is that the degree to which people tend to be linear in their quote unquote real life, their professional life, their personal life, the pendulum swings to the same degree when their creativity comes in play. And this, I think, is what frustrates so many people, because they can make shopping lists, they can file their taxes, they can do these kind of orderly projects.
Right.
And then they come into creativity, and creativity says, I think I'll write chapter 2. Oh, maybe I'm going to write the end now. And they're like, wait, start at chapter 1. So I think that, people really struggle with that, because they're like, wait, I want to control, but when I control, like, nothing good happens to the story. It's very hard for people to navigate that and to find order in something that feels very chaotic. So this book was really specifically targeted to people who think in that way. There are lots of books out there on how to outline. It's been beaten to death. But these poor people who are just a little bit all over the place, who are also linear thinkers in general and in every other aspect of their life, struggle to find the right amount of organization
Right.
that's not going to stifle them.
So the name of the book is
Storytelling for Pantsers: How to Write and Revise Your Novel Without an Outline.
Okay. Without an outline. That's scary. You're putting me
It
on
is.
That's the edge of the cliff. and that's okay. I guess that's all right. So it's really about revising and revising.
That's right. And, to your point, Johnny, for someone who is an outliner, they should absolutely outline. And I think that's the important distinction, that we're not saying that all outliners should become pantsers, that all pantsers should become outlines. To the first point that we made at the top of our session here today, we're helping people to work with their brains. So for people who like outlines and that really helps them to stay in flow, yes, do that. But this particular book was written for the people who just get stuck and outlines don't work for, but they don't understand why the outline isn't working for them.
So I would think when you bring on a client, somebody who says, I've got an outline, or I want to, I've got an idea, I would think that you can work with them online from where you're at and do that. Is that how it works? How do you work with people?
Yeah. So it's, when I first started my business, I used to have to explain what Zoom was. And then we all had a global pandemic and everybody knew what Zoom was.
Everybody knows Zoom.
So we were online before online was cool. And that allows us to work with anybody who's publishing in the English-speaking market. So I have connections in the United States, of course, all of North America, and the United Kingdom as well. And so, we're working with people across the world in multiple time zones who are looking to publish, typically in the North American market, but also in the UK market.
Right. So what about the future? How I'm really curious to hear from you about AI and the effects of AI. And I use AI a tiny bit, not a lot, because I think, to me, it's undisciplined. I mean, I know people. I literally know people that consult AI on multiple occasions every day, like it's their friend talking to them and giving them advice, which seems really scary to me. But anyway, how is AI affecting the writer world?
I mean, it's huge right now, and I'm really glad that you asked this question. So, uh, this past March at the London Book Fair, which is one of the two biggest deal events in the industry, in the publishing industry, I spent a lot of time talking with publishers, acquisitions editors, literary agents from around the world,
Mhm.
not about the writer perspective, because writers are asking what you pointed out, should I use AI to write my books? And if so, like, how should I use them? Is it okay to use it for an outline or an idea? Like, I'm not using it for my whole book. They're really thinking about their perspective. What I wanted to focus on, Johnny, is how is it changing the way that publishers are thinking about what's behind both of us right now? Print, books.
Yes.
How is this changing the future of publishing and how authors will be acquired, how authors will be paid, how books will be printed? This is the forecast that I was interested in tracking in all of these conversations. And so, what I did with that information that I gathered from Chinese publishers, from UK publishers, from Penguin Random House, from top literary agents, everybody that I spoke to, I culled all of that info and I put it into a retreat that we're offering this September to tackle that exact thing, because authors really need to be paying attention, not just to, should I use AI to outline my novel? I mean, that's an important question for each individual author to think
Right.
about, but also, what does AI mean for the future of what a book is? That's pretty darn important. So we're going to take a deep dive into that the last weekend of September. It's online, and I'd be happy to send you that link if that
Yeah.
sounds interesting for anybody to join.
Well, let's explore that for a second. Your writers retreat. Let's dig into that for a minute. You touched on about AI, but uh, how how long is the session, or is it multiple sessions, or what
Yeah.
does what's somebody gonna bump into when they turn on their Zoom?
Yes, so it is a retreat. We've had people, rent themselves a hotel room and kind of take time away from their everyday lives.
Yeah. Wow.
You don't have to do that, but you can if you want to. We're online from Friday evening. We're in Eastern Standard Time. Friday evening all the way through the early afternoon, late morning on Sunday. So it's a full day on Saturday. We have writing time. We have one-on-one sessions. But the bulk of the content we're going to talk about is what is the future of publishing in AI, and what should you be doing right now to prepare for that if you
Uh,
want to have an author career.
yeah. Yeah. So give me a little tease on what the publishers say about AI.
Whew, I mean, I would say that one of the most interesting conversations that I had was with an Asian contingent. So we had Japanese publishers, a lot of Chinese publishers, and I was listening to this all in translation. They were speaking their native languages, um, eh, talking about in Asia what books will look like physically, what are we going to do about the book? And that was really interesting because this book which I'm holding up and you can't see because of my background.
Yeah.
This is written by me. It's all me in here. Every word was written by me. Books might not look like that in the future. They may be more anthology based. There was a lot of discussion about, how do online platforms integrate with books and what does that look like? AI now allows us to be interactive. What would that look like, right? So there's just a lot of shift in what has been an established medium for
Wow.
150 plus years.
Thousands of, I mean, I would think thousands, close to thousands of years now, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you think back to scrolls and the written word, for sure, right?
Yeah.
Like, and now we're thinking like, okay, this is, we're talking Star Trek now. Like, this
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
what is that going to be?
So so a book could be one page with a QR code in it.
these are the things that we were really
Yeah.
exploring. And that's just one aspect of the conversations that I had. And, if there's no such thing as a book anymore, let's just play this out, right? This thing that we know as a book, the book by author, no
Yeah.
longer exists. And suddenly that disappears and authors aren't prepared for that. That's kind of a big deal. Like, we need to prepare for that.
Well, I see signs of that. When I read a book because that's what I do. And sometimes I'll read multiple books at the same time. I mean, I got two on my nightstand, and one night's this and the other one's that, and that kind of thing. But I've noticed, I'll use my wife as a comparison. She is entirely books on tape. Entirely. She doesn't read a book. She, that's I know that doesn't have to do with AI, but it certainly has to do with technology.
Yeah.
And I don't think I would have the patience to do that. I just, I guess it gets back to our learning abilities and how we process information that we started with that. But I see AI having an effect on that, all that stuff too. And what about the plagiarism elements of AI?
Yeah, I mean, this was a huge topic at the London Book Fair this year. In fact, they had put together 1,000 copies of a book called "Don't Steal This Book," and the only text inside of it was a list of authors' names who had been used to train AI and who had united to say, "No more."
Really?
Don't take my intellectual property. So I think these are moral issues that we are attacking right now and grappling with in terms of ownership and what it is to own an idea.
As I think, this just hit me that so many self-published authors are on Amazon because of the way Amazon can print that book overnight and get it out and all that stuff. But if you think about it, all those books are held on servers somewhere. And if they're on a server, that means somebody can tap into that server, right, and put it as part of for any better word, an AI library, and an artificial intelligence library. And I'm wondering, maybe that does go on. I have no idea, but I could see where that would be an effect for somebody who, I would like, I could see them typing in a book. I would like to write a book like Annalisa Summea, and about how to help writers write. And then all of a sudden, boom, out it comes.
That's right.
That's pretty scary, actually.
It really is. And, I think with the Anthropic suit that was just recently decided, the authors are standing up for their IP. And one of the things that was rolled out at the London Book Fair was actually a new stamp for your book that says that it's 100% human written. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A testament to the human writing.
Yep.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah. Yep. I have another son in the music business, and they're dealing with similar things, from songwriting to not only publishing the song, but to singing the song. I mean, you can have all kinds of artificial intelligence sing a song now. It's kind of crazy. Anyway, so
I don't know why whoever set this up took away all the fun things. Like, I want a robot to do my taxes.
Yeah. Really? Isn't that the truth? Maybe that's next. I don't know. Golly, it saved me a lot of money, I think. Anyway. So before we go, what does living the author lifestyle mean? Because I've heard you use that before.
This is a good question. And, what I love about this term is it means what it means to the author. So for some people, that means I'm going to write a book a year. For some people, that means I get to write on a beach outside my cabana. For some people, that means I get to write in multiple genres. They all have different dreams. And what's important to us about the author lifestyle is that part of the bespoke experience that we put together for our authors is that we're building to that end goal. Not everybody has the same vision.
Right.
And we take that into account in terms of what we're putting together. So I've worked with a grandma who just wanted to have enough copies of her memoir to give all of her grandkids and great grandkids. That was a lovely project, which is very different from helping somebody to get on national television to talk about his business and how it's really going to have an impact on people and help people's lives. So we're really building out that author lifestyle, putting together the strategy that gets the author to their end goal and treating that as a unique experience for each unique author.
Got it. Wow. Really, this has been a fascinating discussion for me. I want to thank you. We're going to be running out of time for a minute, but let's cover a couple things. The Writers' Retreat is scheduled for when?
It is the last weekend in September 2026. Those exact dates are the 25th through the 27th.
And how does somebody sign up for that?
That's a great question. Do you have show notes, Johnny, that I can send you the link for, or should I give you the URL?
Yeah, you can do that. Sure. Send me the link. Happy to post it. And if somebody wants to write a book and they've got some inkling of an idea, or they've got it half written, or they've written it but don't know what to do with it, how do they find you?
I would love for them to find me and work with them and hear more about what they're up to. They can go to writing-gym.com. They'll see a great video there that explains how we work together, and you can book a call with me right there on that page.
Writing-gym.com. GYM.
That's right.
Not JIM, but GYM.
No, the kind of
gym work out.
Where you're going to work out, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Annalisa, I want to thank you for visiting with us today, and it's been wonderful, and I want to thank you and offer you the best going forward. And thanks again for being here.
Well, thank you, Johnny. Thank you for your insightful questions. It was fun to laugh with you, and thanks for asking about the work that I do.
You have been listening to Minutes with Mango, Life in Motion. Subscribe to hear a new and unique guest each week as they comment on their life's journey and share experiences with lifestyle, culture, and career. You can always find us at minuteswithmango.com.